Good evening. This presentation is designed to inform the consumer the benefits of one of biotechnology's greatest inventions, and that's genetically modified food. The presentation will demonstrate the need and safety of genetically modified food. Almost all grocery stores now display an organic section whenever you walk into them. And you notice this more and more now because a lot more consumers now are preferring organically grown food. The reason is because consumers are concerned with the risks that are associated with genetically modified food. The general public, if educated properly on the safety and the need of genetically modified food, will continue to buy genetically modified food, and more firms will end up producing it, which is a good thing. As I have stated before, consumers that demand organic food over genetically modified food are concerned with the risks that are associated with genetically modified food. GM food receives a fair share of criticism because it is a newer technology that's available. And any breakthrough in technology will receive a fair share of criticism. And this is a good thing, because if we don't have criticism with our new technology that comes out, we won't be able to pick out any of the flaws. However, we must test the technology and make sure it's safe and beneficial to the community. The public safety is one of the critiques of genetically modified food. Imagine yourself as a grocery shopper, and you're going to the grocery store and you pick up an orange. You just see this regular orange here, and you notice that it's not in the organic section. This food, you may not know, is genetically modified. Now, should you be concerned with the risks that are associated with it? Is this going to be toxic to you or to your children? Is it much different from this organically grown orange? This is some of the things that we'll be talking about. Secondly, demand is the second major critique of genetically modified food. Why do we need it? Why do we need to spend millions of dollars on production of this food? Well, the two questions I'm going to answer is, why do we need it, and is it safe? We must decide what stance we're going to take on this, because each time we go to the grocery store, inevitably we are determining the outcome of our agriculture and our farming. Let's take a minute and talk a little bit about one of the most prominent diseases that is in the United States today, and that's diabetes. Chances are you or someone you know is affected by diabetes. And what ingredient do doctors tell diabetic patients to stay away from? Does anybody know?
Sugar.
Sugar, exactly. And what do you think about this potato? Do you think this has any sugar inside of it?
Yes. It's loaded.
It is packed full of sugar. And the sugar is complex in what they call starch. For a diabetic that has little or no insulin, to metabolize this is next to impossible. Now, what if this potato, instead of being able to produce sugar, was able to produce amino acids or protein? Then all of a sudden, diabetics can eat all the potatoes that they want to eat without a little bit of guilt. You could go to your Burger King or McDonald's, and you could pick out French fries, and it'd be on the Atkins diet. It would be something that's really phenomenal. Now, if we have this technology available today, why is it not being used? Well, the public is concerned about the capability of genetically modified food. But, they're concerned with, what if something goes wrong in the genetic production? What if we're introducing toxins into our bodies or into our children? Well, there was two scientists that set up a study back in 1999. Their names were Ewan and Putsai. They studied genetically modified consumption on laboratory rats. They gave 6 rats genetically modified potato, and they found that the majority of the rats ended up having intestinal abnormalities. So they published this paper, but soon after that, the FDA published a counter report based upon it and discredited the whole thing. They said that for laboratory rats, potato, whether it's genetically modified or whether it's organic, is lethal to rats. And a study of 6 laboratory rats is not conclusive to anything. And so it would need a larger study. The U.S. Has an organization now that regulates all the food and products that come through it, and it's called the FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration. They monitor any kind of food, cosmetic, or drug that is in production and shipped to market. A large percentage of that food that's shipped to market is genetically modified. Chances are you've probably already eaten it. Well, why would you not know that this food is genetically modified? Well, because a lot of it is not modified in nutrition. A lot of it's modified to be resistant to herbicide and resistant to pests. Well, there are some that are modified nutritional value. According to Deborah Whitman in her study in 2000, she published a report on genetically modified foods, and scientists at the Swiss Institute of Technology for Plant Sciences, they found out what they call now the golden rice. And this golden rice is high in beta-carotene, or vitamin A. And the cool thing about it is, a lot of people in third world countries, rice is their major crop. It's their major food source. And in third world countries, there's a prominent disease of blindness. So people who consume this rice will ultimately not have that vitamin A deficiency for blindness. So that's a really neat thing. So not only is genetically modified food safe by FDA standards, but it can also enrich the foods that we already eat today. Okay, so we know that genetically modified food is safe, but why do we need it? Why is it important for companies like Monsanto to spend millions of dollars on genetically modified food? Well, an interesting statistic that you may want to know is that within the past 50 years, according to Worldometers, which is a real-time population database, in the past 50 years, our population has doubled from what it was before. That's thousands of years of population growth was doubled in just 50 years. Can you imagine what the next 50 years will hold? And each year, according to science, we are affected with global warming more and more. There's less food production. There's less land to grow food. So if you put all this together, if we're eating more and growing less, we're going to have a global food crisis on our hands. So Africa, as we know right now, is affected by starvation. And if we're not careful, and we don't plan for this, we could soon be behind them. So let's stop and think. What if crops could be altered to be resistant to temperature change, like in global warming? There are already some crops that are available right now that do that. If you go out west, the cactus, which is a major crop over in the west, it's resistant to temperature change. What if crops could thrive in salt water? Well, that answers the question of where are we going to plant all these crops. If it could grow in salt water, it wouldn't use fresh water supply, and there would be more places to grow it. And what if we could genetically modify crops to increase the harvest rate, so that way instead of one season per year for a crop to produce fruit or produce its vegetable, it would take three seasons per year. So it would be tripling the amount of food that's in production. So these are all possibilities that exist now. So I ask again, why is genetically modified food important? It's necessary to ensure our own survival. To finish things off, I'd like to conclude with a few words. Even though genetically modified corn does not roll off the tongue, whenever you're singing Old MacDonald to your children, and on his farm he had genetically modified corn, E-I-E-I-O. It's essential to the concepts for our children, and for our children's children, and for generations to come. So this technology in agriculture will help us live healthier lives and will ensure the prosperity of our own food supply for the future. Each time you take a trip to the supermarket, you are placing your vote. Will you vote for organic food? Will you vote for genetically modified food? And so I leave you with this one question. Will you vote for the prosperity of our children and our food supply in the future? Thank you.